From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Hatteberg's People.
The measure of a life isn't always in the grand achievements, but in the quiet passions that leave a lasting mark. And tonight, we celebrate the lives of Hatteberg's people.
Now we'll start with a rediscovered piece of history. My long-forgotten photos of Eleanor Roosevelt's visit to Winfield in the final year of her life.
Then we remember Margaret Miller, a Wichita woman whose passion for recycling became her legacy.
Plus, Leland Chappie Chapman, the man in his 90s who refused to quit, and the loyal dog whose final farewell will leave you speechless. Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Hatteberg.
I'm Susan Peters. Join us right now for a half an hour of Hatteberg's People.
These stories are like old friends. Their lives radiate from the screen like prophets of the past. They were teachers, but not in a classroom. Instead, they taught about life to those around them who cared to listen, and I was their student.
A forgotten box of negatives, a faded memory, and suddenly a piece of American history is rediscovered right here in Kansas.
Yeah, it's really an unbelievable story, at least for me, Sue.
It is.
I recently stumbled upon some photographs I took in 1962 when I was a senior at Winfield High School. Now, I had forgotten all about these negatives, and they had never been shown to anyone.
But these weren't just any pictures. They involved one of the most recognizable figures of the 20th century.
Yeah, at that time, I was just a kid with a camera who happened to find himself face to face with the most famous woman in the world. Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was the longest-serving First Lady ever. Her involvement in politics and dedication to making the world a better place set the tone for what a First Lady should be. So, in May of 1962, I was just about to graduate from Winfield High School. My grades had been uninspiring, and I really wasn't a great student. However, I did like photography. Now, my parents told me that Eleanor Roosevelt was coming to Southwestern College to give a speech, so I thought it'd be great to get a picture of this famous woman shaking hands with my parents, Merle and Mary Hatteberg. So on May 4th, 1962, with my trusty camera, I made that shot. And that picture has been hanging on my wall in my home forever. Now that should be the end of the story, but it isn't. That wasn't the only picture I took that day. You see, I followed Mrs. Roosevelt around that day like a puppy dog, pretending I was supposed to be there. I wasn't. Now, I took over 50 shots with my little camera, but those were never developed, never printed, never seen by anyone. Now you ask why? Well, it's a pretty simple reason. I had a date that night with a beautiful brunette, and I was not going to miss that date. Hormones were stronger than reason, so I printed the picture of my parents only, and then I stashed all the remaining negatives inside envelopes attached to a contact sheet. So for the next 63 years, I forgot all about those negatives. I even forgot that I had them. That is, until I received an email from Winfielder Kayla Woolard.
I thought it was an important piece of history that Winfield was kind of missing out on. And so I wanted everyone to be able to see these, because when I looked up Eleanor Roosevelt's visit to Winfield in the 60s, I couldn't find any information. I couldn't find any other photos. I'd only found two photos. One was with your parents, and then the other was with the Girl Scout troop that she was with.
So right here is where my wife and I keep all of our storage material. I had this box, this one right here. It says Hatteberg Storage, Larry Hatteberg, negatives from high school. If those negatives are anywhere, I would have put them in here. So if it was in any box, it would have been in this box. This is my stuff from Winfield High School. And when I opened the box, I found and remembered this. And there they are, the shots of Eleanor Roosevelt from that date. And there are about 50 of them.
I wanted to showcase them on a website because I thought it was an important piece of history that Winfield was kind of missing out on. And so I wanted everyone to be able to see these.
Now understand, I was 17 years old when I took these pictures. Are they the best in the world? No. But what they are is a visual record of Eleanor Roosevelt's visit to Winfield on May 4th, 1962. Now the pictures, they aren't breathtaking or beautiful, but they do tell us some things. You can see how easy it was for folks to talk to Mrs. Roosevelt. There was little security, and it wasn't presidential-like. No Secret Service, no agents with earpieces, none of that. One of my favorite pictures is the two Winfield policemen sitting next to the former First Lady, and how casual they are.
And just seeing how things were different then versus how they are now. One photo that comes to mind is the one with her and the two police officers, and that was her security detail. And I just think that's so interesting how much it's changed.
That's Winfield Police Officer Bob Berry smiling on the left, with Officer M.J. Kales to the right of the First Lady. Now, one of the men responsible for her visit was the Reverend Ben Finley, originally from a church in Tisdale near Winfield, and later from Conway Springs. He had a bit of a clout. He conceived a program called the Little United Nations, and even the UN approved it, a chance for people to come together and discuss current events. And this time, the Little UN would meet at the Southwestern College campus. He is visible in many of the pictures, and there's one shot of his entire family with Mrs. Roosevelt. For Southwestern College, it was a good day. The college president, Dr. Orville Stroll, hoped the day would let the people mingle and meet the former First Lady. They did. And in a small town like Winfield, it was a big day. Mrs. Betty Graham was the Cali County Democratic Party chairman, and she stuck to Mrs. Roosevelt like glue. There was a lot riding on this visit, and everyone wanted it to go well. It did. Mrs. Roosevelt was 77 years old at the time of her visit, and what no one knew is that in 5 months, the former First Lady would be dead. Within a month, her health would decline rapidly. We don't know the identity of most of the people in these pictures. Many movers and shakers, of course, of the Winfield community are represented. Now, this photograph is of Girl Scout Troop 107. The girls helped serve the meal, young then. Today, there are a lot of grandmas in that picture. In this photograph, I'm pretty sure that the man on the right is Lee Ham. Now, Lee owned a photo processing company in Winfield. He would later work for a brief time at KSNW-TV in Wichita. On the left side, I believe, is photographer Carl Whitson of the Winfield Courier newspaper. Now, this was shot at the news conference in the afternoon at Southwestern College. Now, the people who attended had easy access to her, and it appears from the pictures a kinship. For many women, they would almost whisper in her ear. They felt close to her. Then there was an outside barbecue in front of Sonner Stadium at Southwestern. Many noted the former First Lady got her own food. Well, it was a barbecue after all. Now, these pictures won't wow anyone, but it's nice to see what was, and for Winfield to experience what many then called a world event.
And I just wanted to share this big thing that I thought was big, especially since she had came to teeny tiny Winfield, did a speech, she spoke at Southwestern, she did all these things with us, but there wasn't anything in history saying that she was even here, really.
And one other thing. Remember that date that I had that I couldn't miss with that little brunette from Winfield? Well, we're still dating 63 years later, and she is still very cute.
Okay, was that unbelievable or what? I ask you, are you kidding me? All those negatives you took when you were a senior in high school. First of all, they're beautiful. They look like professional photographs. But second of all, the way you found them, someone contacted you, you go to your basement, you look at, a piece of history.
Yeah, these pictures would still be lost if Kayla, the
Yeah.
young woman you saw in the story, if Kayla hadn't contacted me, I would be oblivious to this. But those negatives rested in my basement for 63 years untouched.
Unbelievable.
Never processed. Nobody had seen anything. But it was her that sparked me to go find those pictures, and there they were.
Okay, and then this beautiful production of a story that was produced.
Yeah.
It was beautiful because it had all the elements of emotion, history,
You're embarrassing
importance.
me now.
No, it was. I'm so glad you did this story. I'm so glad you did it.
Well, I'm glad I did it too. And the interesting thing is, Eleanor Roosevelt stayed 2 nights at the Sonner Motel in Winfield, Kansas.
What was it called? Sonner?
Sonner.
Okay.
Sonner Motel in Winfield, Kansas. Now, at that time in 1962, the motel was managed by Wallace Barnes. He had 2 daughters, and one of the daughters was in my graduating class,
Yeah.
Carol Barnes, and the other was a younger daughter. Her name was Linda, and I wanted to find out if they knew that Eleanor Roosevelt had stayed in their little motel.
hotel.
Because the Barneses lived in the motel.
They did?
Yeah.
Including the 2 daughters?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Mrs. Roosevelt would have been close by.
Yeah.
So I located Linda Barnes in California, and I said, so, did your parents tell you that Eleanor Roosevelt is staying at your motel? And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, May 4th, 1962, Eleanor Roosevelt stayed at your hotel for 2 nights. And she says, I've never heard that story.
Wow.
I said, it's
Unbelievable.
true. She said, I was in junior high, and the only thing I was interested in at that point was were boys. But she said, no, we knew nothing about it. And I got to thinking about it. I wonder if that was a security issue.
Yeah, it probably was.
You know,
Yeah, because you
that-
wouldn't want a lot of people knowing.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
you could tell from the pictures there wasn't much security other than probably not knowing where she was staying.
Yeah, Winfield High School, Winfield, Kansas, Sonner Motel. You know, it was surrounded by police at night. I mean,
Yeah.
they had police on the hotel back in '62.
Right.
But the point is, there's not much history in Winfield about her appearance, which really surprised me. There aren't any pictures.
And now there is.
Now we've got pictures. At least we've made history move a little bit forward.
You said you came to Southwestern College and
Winfield Historical Society and the Arc City Daily Traveler.
so now there is living proof.
There's
And-
now actual proof that that famous woman was in Winfield, Kansas.
And I'm so glad that the girl, the young lady that you sacrificed some famous pictures for, that you've been with her for 63 years.
That's right.
I'm very happy about that.
That's right. And she's still the same as she was in
As
1962.
beautiful as ever, Judy.
Well, Mrs. Roosevelt's visit to Winfield was one of her very last public appearances before passing away 6 months later. And what we didn't know then, she had a kind of a form of cancer, but it had been in remission for a long time. And then a month after she left Winfield, she started feeling ill.
It's so weird.
And then 5 months later, she was gone.
She was gone. Winfield may have been one of our last trips.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for that story.
quite welcome.
Thank you. All right, this next story is about another woman who became famous trying to make the world a little bit better.
And in 1995, I featured a Wichita woman named Margaret Miller, who believed what others threw away was a precious resource to be saved. Her recycling efforts gained her national acclaim.
So I grew up in the Depression, you know, and everything was valuable. And we just didn't throw things away.
You'll see her rummaging through the recycling bins at Dillon's.
Now here's a sack. See, they aren't supposed to leave sacks.
She's here every day making sure there's no plastic with the tin cans and no brown paper sacks with the newspapers.
Well, I feel that, of course, we've made some progress, but it seems to me awfully slow. I think we should be doing a lot more.
Her work is getting coast-to-coast attention. This month's issue of National Geographic magazine. There she is, Margaret Miller with her husband, Paul. The magazine calls her Mrs. Recycling.
Well, I feel that, of course, we've made some progress, but it seems to me awfully slow. I think we should be doing a lot more.
In her comfortable basement, surrounded by plants, enjoying a southern exposure, Margaret prepares for the next waste control meeting.
Well, I think perhaps the secret to my success, if I have any, is that I have just been persistent.
As the computer clicks off bits and bytes, the Kansas wind provides the energy to dry her clothes.
We environmentalists think we take the long view. You know, we think a lot of other people take the short view. This is our newspaper bin. We just stack them in there.
Margaret's recycling efforts are simple, and it's hard for her to understand why everyone doesn't do it.
It's just second nature to me. I couldn't stand to throw things away, you know, because I just never have.
Her yard is natural. The grass clippings go back to the ground, not the landfill. And for her frequent dinner guests, the more natural, the better.
He's getting real tame. Look at this.
But it's here, at Dillon's recycling bins, where Margaret makes her mark.
I think most people want to do right. A lot of people don't understand that it's really important. See, this was in the tin can. Shouldn't be there.
Next month will be the 25th anniversary of Earth Day. For Margaret Miller, Earth Day is every day.
This just to me is very satisfying because I feel it's important. Yeah, good day. Yeah, nothing really horrible.
Now, Margaret continued her tireless advocacy for decades, and in 2004, her legacy was cemented when the nonprofit recycling center, named after Margaret and her husband, opened. It's called Pro Kansas Miller Recycling.
After celebrating 75 years of marriage with her husband, Paul, the woman known as Mrs. Recycling passed away just in 2017 at the age of 98.
It's so nice when people have their life directed by a cause.
By a cause, and she didn't let anyone, and it wasn't a cause that made her, she didn't gain anything from it. It was for other people.
It was for others. Okay, well, for most of us, the roar of a lawnmower is the sound of a weekend chore.
But in 1995, Larry visited a Wichita workshop where that sound was the rhythm of a life well lived.
We test that. Oh, I love working.
These old hands have seen a lot of work, and these old hands have seen a lot of life.
You take most people when they go home and sit down, about 3 years is it. This plug's pretty bad.
Leland Chappie Chapman is pushing 93.
I don't want to just go down and sit down.
Outside his little lawnmower repair shop, these mowers are waiting to be pushed again. But nobody has to push Chappie.
Oh, boy, this motor's tied up.
At 92, he still works every day.
Well, this motor's going to have to be checked out. They've hit something, bent the crankshaft on it.
A lifetime ago, he started in the bicycle business.
I've got people who've been trading with me since he's boys. Old gray-haired men come in here sometimes and say, I bought my first bicycle from you.
How long ago was that? Well, he's been in the mower business for 50 years, and still, he works.
Another thing, I don't drink or don't smoke. And I think that has something to do with my life, too.
His favorite mowers are not the high-powered, self-propelled kind. Nope, it's these.
Must be at least 45 years old. No, it isn't old-fashioned. There's a little work to it. People will be a lot better off if they use that instead of walking behind a self-propelled mower. Still cut grass with it.
This old mower isn't retired, and neither is Chappie.
Chapman Brothers. I said I was going to retire when I hit 80, and then I said 85, and then 90, now 95. You bet. Probably if I get to 95, I want to stay till I'm 100. I don't know.
This old clock is the only thing here older than Chappie. Unlike him, it still works.
But that's about the last thing I got of my dad's, and I just don't want to turn loose of it.
And Chappie doesn't want to let loose of life. He lives it his way.
My sister is 11 years younger than I am. She and I have lived together all our life. She's no maid and I'm no bachelor.
But it's here with his mowers that Chappie is the happiest.
That's one of the first lawnmowers ever built. This is probably 75, 80 years old.
Still younger than Chappie, but that's okay. He's happy here in his little shop, seeing his old friends. He is exactly where he wants to be in life.
I just probably pass out with a wrench in my hand.
Wow. And he got joy out of repairing lawnmowers.
He did. It's sometimes just the simple things.
Exactly. Well, Leland Chappie Chapman passed away on November 9th, 1995, the very day he turned 95 years old.
But there was still one final amazing chapter to his story, courtesy of his loyal dog Spotty. At Chappie's viewing, a relative brought Spotty to say goodbye. Now, when Chappie's favorite hymn, The Old Rugged Cross, began to play, Spotty lifted his head and sang along one last time. A final heartfelt farewell to the man he loved. You know, dogs know when death occurs in people.
Absolutely. And I'm sure
They
the dog
absolutely do.
missed him so much. But what a gift from heaven that God said, everyone down there needs to know Chappie's all right. So I'm going to make the dog sing.
And I'll bet everybody cried.
I almost cried just hearing about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, in 2002, Karen Cundiff was watching her dream take shape as a new building for her business was rising from the ground.
But everything ground to a halt, not because of permits or payroll, but because of an unexpected resident who decided to move in first.
It was the tiniest of obstacles, but one that everyone believed carried the weight of the federal law, and no one was sure what to do next.
It was very stressful.
Her business, Hearth and Home, is now open on North Ridge Road. Inside, the showrooms shine with the smell of new paint and fancy products. But getting to this point was a struggle. One day, as the building was under construction, she had an unexpected visit from her builder.
He said, "We've got a problem." And he started describing a bird. And he said that this bird is on the endangered species list. It's built a nest behind our building, and we're shut down until the bird decides to move.
The bird was a least tern. It's on the endangered species list and federally protected. These are pictures of one provided by Kansas Wildlife and Parks.
And I couldn't believe it. I thought he was joking. I literally couldn't believe it. And he wasn't. We were totally shut down until that bird moved.
The bird didn't migrate for nearly 5 months.
Yeah, it was right back behind the building here. Yeah, the bird was just right back here. It's not even our property. That's our fence, and that's the end of our property right there.
Wildlife biologists had put up a fence with signs warning that the bird was nesting and to stay away. Small businesses face all sorts of problems. The last thing they expected here, though, were problems from a bird.
Oh yeah, we lost thousands and thousands and thousands on the delays that we had. Major financial losses due to the bird, and somehow I just don't think that bird's going to pay us back any of that money.
But there is an ironic twist to this story. None of the biologists from the federal government or the biologists from the state parks and wildlife ever ordered construction on this building to cease. Apparently, it was just a misunderstanding about a federally protected bird.
That would be very upsetting. It was bad enough having the bird, but if we found out that we really didn't need to stop all the construction and that we could have been in here much sooner, that would be just very bad.
It now appears the bird, while protected, is innocent. No one from the federal government or Kansas Wildlife and Parks ever issued an order to shut down construction. It appears to be a case of simple miscommunication.
I understand that we have to protect the environment and we have to protect endangered species, but we got to protect businesses and be able to function, and people have to be able to make their livelihood. It's just one of those things you have to deal with in life. One of the, bad things come up, but hopefully good things will come out of it in the long run.
Well, that confusion around that little tiny bird contributed to Karen eventually closing her store.
But that setback led her back to her creative roots. She launched a successful 20-year career in marketing, becoming the marketing director for a national furniture rental company.
And now, as she prepares for retirement, Karen is launching a new venture once again. It's a travel and lifestyle platform for women. Always creating a new Karen.
Exactly.
You know?
Isn't that cool?
It is wonderful.
And now she sees another need because a lot of women or widows or they could get together with women and travel. Right?
Yes, they could.
We're headed out of here.
Yes, they could.
Okay. That's a wrap for this week. Want to remind you, now that federal funding has been taken away, PBS Kansas needs to decide which programs to cancel and which to keep.
Well, Susan and I volunteer our time, but producing television shows here is expensive. So if you would like to see Hatteberg's People continue, you can go to kpts.org and make a $100 donation to help keep this show funded.
And as a thank you, your name will appear in the closing credits in the near future as a valued supporter. For now, thank you so much for watching. I'm Susan Peters.
And I'm Larry Hatteberg. We hope to see you very soon.